Hello everybody, today we're going to be, I'm Sam. Today we're going to be looking at some machetes and a couple of other knives like this hunting knife that I carry with me when I go hiking. So I'm an outdoorsy kind of guy. I don't know how well I would do in a survival situation, but I do like to get out there, do some hiking and mostly take nature photography or videos. So as the more time you spend outdoors, you start to want to try out different tools just to see how they do for you. I do like to go off trail because I'm trying to find, good scenery to film in or whatever. And so I found that a machete can be useful when I'm out there. I'm not a knife expert by any means, but I certainly do have some opinions on some of these that I've used and owned throughout the years. Okay, so first I'll start with my hunting knife. This one I purchased this is an M-Tech, what would it be? Maybe a 5 or 6 inch blade there. And so this one I purchased basically for intimidation, okay? So I read some reviews that the blade can snap. I saw some people trying to hammer with it or put it in a piece of wood and then, hit a rock on top and break the wood, things like that. So it's not good for things like that. It's also, because of the weird blade shape, not very practical for a lot of uses. But what happens is when I'm hiking out there, I do a lot of hiking in California. There's unfortunately people that go out there to do drugs, people that are just homeless, some of them are mentally unstable. And believe me, I've run into quite a lot of different individuals that are not just day hikers. They look like they're tenting out there or have been out there long term, right? So when I run into these kinds of people, the first thing I try and do is engage. Hey, how you doing? And depending on how they respond, then, I back away or try and go another place, or if I ever needed to, I may have to try and defend myself, right? So this is for intimidation, not really super practical for anything else. One of the things I like about this knife though is that the blade and all the way to the handle is one piece of metal. That's something that's really important to me, because having a blade that is bolted or fastened onto a handle, it can get loose, it can wobble, it can fall apart. It does have these plastic resin pieces that have been screwed on to give it more thickness when you're holding it. It feels solid, it's heavy, it's really thick metal. And as far as holding an edge, it does okay. It's an M440 steel, which is a high carbon steel that does okay. It's not your super high quality metals, but I just sharpen it every now and then. And this wasn't a super expensive knife. I think I spent 40 bucks on it. And what it allows me to do is be careless with the knife, because if something were to happen to it, I could just buy another one, right? But one of the things I practically use this for, that was very practical, was I was climbing a steep embankment. I had a 30-pound pack and it was very steep. So I could take a few steps up and then slide down. And I'm trying to grab onto roots and pull myself up. And so I grabbed this knife and I was sticking it into the ground as a way to grip and pull myself up and climb up. So I actually attempted this specific climb twice and I failed both times, but I think that I could have succeeded. It just, this can be a useful tool, and just not in a traditional sense, because of the strange blade shape. All right, cool. So that's that on this one. The sheath here is very poor quality. It does have a lot of mileage on it now. It's ripped. And so I had my mother-in-law sew it back up for me, because this is such a specific sheath that there was no other sheath that was going to fit this knife. So the other thing is that inside there was a hard plastic shell to hold the knife, And that completely fell apart. And that's actually what ripped this up. As I was putting this in, it started to tear through the mesh material here. So I got 2 credit cards, I believe, and I just duct taped them together and then put it back in there. So not a great review. Eventually this is going to completely fall apart, and I don't know how I'm going to carry this once that happens. But in the meantime, we've made do the best we can. Okay, so machete wise, the reason we're doing a review on this machete is because yesterday my son bought this Gerber Gator Machete. It's an 18-inch blade, and it has a serrated edge on the back, which really comes in handy when you're out in the woods. So we were just out there. So he went out there with that one, and I went out there with my Lansky. This is what, a 12-inch? Oh no, this is okay. So this is probably like a 14-inch. I carry a shorter blade on my machete because when I'm hiking, I do put it on my belt, and it gets in the way a little less than the longer blades. So this is just that much longer and harder to maneuver. If I have to lift my foot to get over a boulder or something like that, the smaller blades make it a little bit easier to get through. Okay, so these look relatively the same as far as build and stuff, but I don't know if you guys can see, after my son was hacking on some branches, not rock or wood or anything like that, not rock or any hard surfaces like that, just wood, branches, and brush, the blade is all bent out of shape. So that's a no-go for this one. Again, this is the Gator Machete. It's an 18-inch blade with a serrated back. It ran, I believe, $49.99 at the sports store, but on Amazon I saw it for $39.99. It says right on the packaging, high carbon steel. So let's talk about that. I mentioned that this one's an M440 steel. Oh, there it is. This is the, ooh, it's stuck in there. This is the plastic thing that I concocted just to hold the knife inside the sheath. This is M440 steel. And a red flag in knives or machetes or blades in general is when they don't say the specific kind of steel that it has. That means it's probably not that high quality. When looking at the reviews, which we should have done before purchasing this, but we purchased this at the store, on a whim, they say that there was an original version of this machete that was high quality, but for some reason, the newer ones that they're selling now that look the same are considerably lower quality. Clearly they're lower quality. This is just really bad. Another thing that was a red flag about this one is how easily it bends, which, if you got a high quality stiff steel blade that's gonna hold an edge, you're not gonna see that much warping that easily. Another thing I don't like about this machete is that the blade is bolted into this handle, which means that over time this can get loose and this blade can actually come apart. But before that happens, as you're trying to hack, you get a lot of movement from the handle to the blade, and you're losing energy that you're trying to use for cutting. It has a grippy handle, so that part's good, but it doesn't matter because this blade is just absolutely worthless. We're gonna return this one. We're gonna take it back and get our money back. And then I'm walking my son through doing a little bit more research on, the quality of the blade before making an impulsive purchase. I've had this one for a few years now. You can see, I don't know if you can see, it's got some wear and tear. This also, what I don't like about it is the blade is inserted into this plastic handle and then bolted in. And it's already coming loose, so you can feel it rattling around. Still functional, and I do need to get some bits here and screw it back together, tighten it back up. But over time, I might strip that, or it might just get looser and looser. So I don't like that about blades like this. But this blade was hacking the same branches that this one was, and it is not bent. So clearly there's a difference in quality in metal between this and this, even though they look like they're the same shape. This one's a Lansky blade, and I don't remember what I paid for it. I got it quite a while ago. I believe I got it from Ross, of all places, and it couldn't have been more than like 20, 25 bucks. So very happy with this one. I don't see a rating on the type of steel that is used. It's held an edge pretty good. I think I've only sharpened it maybe once with one of those simple little sharpeners that basically go over the blade like that. And it's dummy-proof method of sharpening knives. Not the best way, but it's a simple way. The serrated edge on the back is not very sharp at all. So it is not super useful for sawing, but I've been wanting to get in there and get these teeth sharpened up so that it's more functional for that. The sheath works out really well. It's very stiff. I'm not sure how they did that with the mesh. It must have some kind of stiff lining. And what's nice about it is it sits right on my hip, and when I lift my leg, it just kind of gets out of the way. It's light enough that it doesn't bog me down. And unlike other machetes that I've hiked with, it doesn't snag on the brush as easily because it's just a little shorter. Okay, so if I ever needed something even shorter, if I was gonna be pushing through brush, I would probably take this Schrade blade with me. This is one that my son has had for quite some time. I think this is the first machete that he ever had. This one's really cool because the handle is a really grippy rubber. So that's really helpful. Whereas all these others, well, this one, I'm sorry, is like a hardened resin. So when it gets wet, it tends to be a little slipperier. This one's also like dipped or something, or molded around the blade. So there's no bolts holding it together. And as it gets looser, that's just gonna, become useless. So that's a downside to this blade. The curvature of the blade, I'm gonna chalk it, as a non-professional, I'm gonna chalk it up to style. I wouldn't say there's an advantage or disadvantage to having it this way, but I'm sure a professional would explain exactly why there's a curvature and what purpose that serves. There's no serrated edge on the back. It is a pretty thick blade. I'm sorry, I don't have specifications for that. But it's held its edge pretty good. My son's not babied this blade at all. I could see some dents into the front end, but it has not been damaged like this Gerber one. He's had it much longer, and he's been hacking at all kinds of brush and branches and logs and wood for quite some time with this one. So this is a higher quality steel, clearly. This is another Schrade blade. This is like a 12-inch blade right here, so it's not in the machete realm anymore, even though I believe when we purchased it, it did say it was a machete. This has a plastic resin handle that has been bolted on, so at least we could maybe tighten it back up if it starts to get loose. He's done really well with this blade. The interesting thing is that it has the sharp blade over here, and it has a little bit of sharpness on this end as well. So that could be useful for piercing and slicing and whatnot. This is one that I would probably consider taking, or this one, if it was really thick brush, because you don't have as much room to swing. You're pushing through brush, and it's a lot smaller on your hip, so it doesn't tangle with the brush as much. And this one's held its edge pretty well as well. I'm assuming it's similar, the same quality of steel as this one. So these Schrade blades have done pretty well for us. I can vouch for them and their quality. As far as weight, they're a little heavier. Like, for example, this one feels heavier than the Lansky. The Lansky is lighter. And believe it or not, that makes a difference, even if it's just a few ounces. Over time, swinging, that fatigue sets in. So a little bit lighter, but just a strong blade is valuable. Okay, so now I have this one. I thought I'd show you guys this one just for fun. This, I believe, would be considered a dagger, But what I like about this one is it's, you know, a good length, right? It could potentially be used as a machete. The handle's quite small. It fit my son's hand pretty well when he was smaller. We haven't really used it practically. In other words, we haven't used it out in the field for anything specific. It's just kind of like a cool looking blade. But what I like about this is the blade goes into the handle. It's all one piece. And then they have some wood accents that have been secured on there through, I'm gonna call it riveting. So you never are gonna have the blade flying off or coming loose or wobbling or rattling or anything like that. It's all one piece, and I'm a huge fan of that. Anytime I can find a blade where it's all one piece, that makes a huge difference to me. This one says 420C stainless steel. That is very encouraging in that they are, you know, saying the quality of the steel that was used here. I don't know that 420C stainless steel is hugely, you know, like super high quality or anything like that, but they are saying what kind of steel is, what kind of steel it is, which is a big difference from these three right here that don't say. And this one, it just says high carbon steel, which is clearly not true. All right, that's just me kind of talking about these different knives and machetes that we've used throughout the years, give you my opinion on them. I know it's not super thorough or highly technical or anything like that, but hopefully it gives you a better idea on what options are out there. There's a ton of machetes, an endless variety of machetes that you can have out there. These are just a few that we've used throughout the years. All right. Good luck.